Did you know that John Hays Hammond Jr. dabbled in the frozen food industry? Hammond was a tireless inventor who had his fingers in many different technological pots over the course of his career. In the 1950s, he often turned his attention to the kitchen. A previous episode of this series introduced you to his panless stove, but on the colder side of the spectrum, Hammond explored the world of frozen food, specifically how to make it safer. The inventor was perhaps inspired by his association with the famous frozen food pioneer Clarence Birdseye, whose name still graces packages in the frozen food aisle of supermarkets across the United States. They met when Birdseye moved his frozen fish company, General Seafood Corporation, to Gloucester, Massachusetts in the mid-1920s. The two inventors were at one time engaged in a possible business venture, although this eventually fell through. Birdseye was also one of the many famous guests who stayed at Hammond Castle Museum. In 1954, Hammond filed a patent for a thermal indicator, which was granted in 1957. The concept was to have a special thermometer that could be included as part of frozen food packaging that could warn consumers if the food had ever increased in temperature sufficient to pose a risk of poor quality or food poisoning. Hammond explained that due to improper storage and transportation, frozen food could rapidly spoil or thaw sufficiently to allow for bacterial growth that might be dangerous if consumed. Consumers had no way to easily determine if this had occurred before they purchased the food. Hammond's invention made it possible to construct a simple thermometer using inexpensive materials with temperature-sensitive substances that could alert the purchaser if the food inside the package had ever increased to worrisome levels. The design consisted of a red piston in a tube, which would be displaced had the temperature increased enough to melt the temperature-sensitive substance inside the tube. This would allow the customer to see that the food was potentially spoiled. Additionally, Hammond mentioned in his patent that there were medical applications for the invention, for substances sensitive to temperature changes such as blood plasma and vaccines. For every technological innovation that comes along, it creates new challenges. It's up to inventors like Hammond to further innovate to meet them. We hope you enjoyed this video, but there is a lot more to explore about John Hays Hammond Jr., his inventions, and his collection of art and artifacts. We invite you to visit us at Hammond Castle Museum in Gloucester, Massachusetts to learn more.